Beyond bent. Janssen! And Blackburn Rovers are 18 minutes away from a Premiership return.
As far as Stewart, just outside the penalty area, clips it central for David Dunn. David Dunn equalises. It just had to be. Dax corner and it goes. Glance towards goal, and Rovers have taken the lead. And Charlie Mulgrew has scored his 14th of the season.
Hello Rovers fans and welcome to our Friday night live match preview, bonus live match preview as we preview Rovers FA Cup tie away at Wigan Athletic tomorrow afternoon. And as you can see, I am joined by the man, Alex Lomax. How you doing, mate?
I'm good, Ryan. It's good to be back on one of these previews. I can't remember the last time I did one, actually. It might have been the Sheffield United game, which was the turning point of the season, so you never know. We might reach the final of the FA Cup. You never know.
Well, you never know. You never know indeed. And Rovers fans joining us, welcome along. Please hit that subscribe button if you are not subscribed to our YouTube channel. Give this video a big like for us. And as we always say, big thank you to our sponsors, Blue Rose Capital and 6yardsout.com for their very kind sponsorship as ever. Just a couple of things before we do the match preview. We currently do have a little bit of a promotion or nomination campaign going, actually. We're really delighted to have the opportunity to give away some half-season tickets for Rovers this season. In a really fortunate position to do that. So if you've not seen it, look on the Rovers Chat Twitter account. We want nominations from all of you, the Rovers fans. We want to make sure those half-season tickets go to those people that deserve them the most. So please go and do that. And we'll obviously let you know in due course where those have gone. And hopefully those half-season tickets will be in the hands of people before the Middlesbrough home game. And as we said as well, we raised loads of money for the Sporting Memories Foundation. So we just want to say a big thank you to everyone for that again as well. That was a really important cause, and congrats to the people that won the prizes. So, Alex, let's start with the match preview then. Just want to do a little reflection on the season so far, actually, because the FA Cup is, alongside international breaks, a little break in play in terms of Rovers' season. The well-publicised 7-0 defeat and everything like that was obviously a big turning point for Rovers' season. Unbeaten in 9 games, 7 wins in 9 games, 6 clean sheets in 7. Rovers second in the table. This is a really silly question to say, how do you think the season has gone so far? I'm not going to ask that one. I'm going to actually say, how would you be approaching this FA Cup game with that run of form that Rovers are on?
Well, I had a look at what we might discuss tonight, and that came up. And I think the only comparison I can draw is looking maybe to the beginning of the season when you win the first game at home to Swansea and we're kind of not sure how we stack up in the league. A lot of people are predicting us to finish, mid-table, lower mid-table, and especially with like losing Armstrong in the summer. And then we field a fairly strong side at home to Morecambe, don't we, in that midweek and lose the game. And I think a lot of people after that night, me included, were going, well, I don't think we will stack up too well this season. And then obviously you look at what's happened since then, both on the negatives and then obviously the positives more recently, going into kind of almost a parallel situation with the first round of the other domestic cup. So I don't think you can say it's been anything other than an amazing season so far. I've said this privately, but if we finish anything close to where we are now at the end of the season, then I'd say it's probably the biggest achievement that the club has had in 30 years. I'll be honest with that. Even when you look at winning the Premier League title, we were one of the biggest spenders. We weren't the biggest spender, but we were one of the favourites. We'd finished runners-up the previous season. And I just think with having a bottom 6 budget, if you finish in the top 6, then that's an exceptional season, regardless of how everything else stacks up. So it's been amazing. Looking more to the FA Cup. I've always loved the FA Cup, or always loved the potential to draw one of the big names. I'm always of the opinion that if you draw one of the teams in your own league, then you don't really take it too seriously. Whereas if you draw a team that's maybe more local, like in this case, or one of the big six, then just try and give it a go and see how you get on, really. I don't see any harm in trying to pick a fairly strong team. There's a decent following going to Wigan, I believe. So I think there's a duty on the manager, I think, and the club as a whole to maybe pick a strong side and try and win the game. And I think see if you can draw one of those big guns in the next round. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Let us know what you think in the comments, Rovers fans, how you'd be approaching the game. I find myself as the biggest hypocrite in the world, actually, Alex, because you are right to point out that Morecambe game earlier on in the season, because it always winds me up the first round of the League Cup, when, as you say, Rovers invariably have not won on the opening day of the season, and it's always an opportunity to get off the mark. So take the cup seriously and get some momentum. The bit I find hypocritical now is I now find myself in a position of, I'm not saying throw the FA Cup, but I'm just worried about some of the injuries. I'm worried about, Edun's coming in for Pickering. So what happens if Edun gets injured and stuff like that? So I just find myself in a really hypocritical position where I'm saying, protect all the players at all costs. Let's try and keep the squad together, both on the pitch and obviously off the pitch with the transfer window. So actually the side that we put out might be a side that ends up losing the game at Wigan, and we go out the FA Cup and we lose the momentum. So just find myself in a really kind of hypocritical thought process with this. But I think first and foremost, you are right. The FA Cup is a great competition as much as, as fans like I've just done, and big clubs will try and undervalue it. It is a great competition and actually an opportunity for us to keep the momentum going, isn't it?
I think that's exactly right. I think often it's the cup runs that you remember after a season rather than individual league games. I know that sounds daft, but you look back at the Gary Boyer era, and even though we were kind of, I would say, had higher expectations in the Championship then than maybe even now, regardless of league position, it's the FA Cup games against the Swanseas and the Stokes and the Liverpools they're the games that you actually look back on and remember, rather than I remember the 0-0 against Yeovil, but no one else does. But you understand the point I'm trying to make is that
I do.
These are the games that are remembered, and everyone remembers the Josh King hat-trick and that kind of thing. So I think it is a duty on the club to take it seriously. I understand the worry with injuries. I think you can be lulled into maybe almost being so scared of injuries that you almost have a self-fulfilling prophecy. At the end of the day, any player can get a bad injury in training. They train 5 days a week. Any player can pick up any injury in training, and we don't kind of fret about that every day of the week. So I don't think you can. I understand the fact that the manager will be criticised if a key player gets injured and he plays a full team on Saturday. But I think if you view that with every single game, you're not going to get anywhere. You've got to try and win this game, in my opinion. You can't be going into it with the attitude of let's throw the cup and and try and do as well as we can in the league. Let's try and get through this round and maybe draw a Premier League side. We might get knocked out, who knows? But let's just try and keep the momentum going. I would say, we're on a good run of form, 7 wins and 2 draws out of 9. Let's try and make it 8 wins and 2 draws, even if it's a cup game.
And I think you're right to point out the duty on the fans as well, Alex, because, Blackpool away this season was disappointing when a lot of fans went there. We've not had the best of luck at Deepdale in recent seasons when a lot of fans have gone there as well. And Wigan actually has not been a happy hunting ground either. So, 3,500 Rovers fans are going to be there. So I think there is a duty on Mowbray and the team to put in a good performance and get past Wigan. And actually, that is the sentiment in the comments. If I just look through here, Daniel, more winning builds confidence. Go for it in the FA Cup. Ryan Gregory, definitely go for a cup run. Cy Slater, Stoke fell in the bottom tier of the Darwin end. Their team were piss poor. Yeah, we remember that, don't we, Cy? And then, Cy also going on to say massive shout out to the 3,500 Rovers fans going tomorrow. And then in the comments, Silent Dan as well, agreeing with you, Alex, that even the FA Cup trips to Oxford and Crewe stick in his head. So you were right to point out the memories of the cup. The only slight anxieties I've got, Alex, so just to build on this a little bit further, this feels like a really decisive month for Rovers. 4 out of the next 5 games in the league are away from home. Harry Pickering's just got an injury for 4 to 6 weeks, plus the January transfer window and keeping the squad together. So are you still, after all of that, tempted not to shake things up and just protect the squad a little bit through this period, or is it still all about the momentum for you?
I'm not saying I'd make a name and unchanged side, even though obviously we can't due to the Pickering injury and a couple of potential COVID positives in the squad, which we're not so sure who they are, but we'll find out obviously when the team sheet's released. You'd be looking to make probably 4 or 5 changes, maybe just try and get those players that maybe are on the periphery of the team who have seen, a few minutes off the bench recently. You're probably looking to give those a full 90 minutes. And you'd probably be looking to bring players back in who would normally be in the first team fold that maybe have had bad luck with injuries recently, and you want to maybe try and see if they can cope with a period of time in a full competitive game. So I think there's an opportunity to bring players in that aren't necessarily playing every week, but wouldn't necessarily weaken the team per se. I think you can make an argument, certainly last season, that JRCC, for example, was possibly the preferred right back throughout the season. Certainly the manager seemed to pick him over Nyambi when both were fit. So I don't see maybe that change being a weakening of the side, and maybe Gallagher coming in for Brereton, something like that. He's just signed obviously a new deal, and I don't see changes like that to be weakening the side too much, and I think it still shows that kind of respect. I think there's a big difference between making 3 or 4 changes to freshen things up rather than making a field and academy side, or making 11 changes, for example. I think you can draw the balance between the two.
Yeah, and in the comments there with what you just finished with that point, Alex, Ryan Gregory says, don't take big risks, keep it conservative, but definitely not a full strength 11. That kind of backs that up with you. And then Alexander Haben as well, I'd be playing as strong a side as possible without taking unnecessary risks. So, that's absolutely the order of the day. Mr. Concept, personally would prefer to play our under 23s, anything to avoid unnecessary injuries and burnout. Yeah, it's a really valid point, Mr. Concept. Harry Pickering breaking down with that injury, which seemingly came from nowhere in that game the other day. That does show you the work rate that this team are putting in. And, we are the lowest percentage possession team in the division. So that shows you we are working really hard with, when we haven't got the ball. So burnout is something to obviously look out for. And Barracuda, what a name, Barracuda. Got to go for a win. We'll be there cheering them on. Good on you. Good on you. Alexander Haben's earlier comment takes me very nicely into the next thing that I wanted to discuss, Alex. So we owe Wigan one. And the point I just want to make on that one, games v Wigan, particularly at the DW Stadium, have been frustrating sometimes. I always remember the 3-0 victory when they first got promoted into the Premier League, when Pedersen scored that volley and Stephen Reid scored the rocket. And I don't think we've had too much to shout about at Wigan, really, since that 3-0 victory. So we do owe them one, Alexander. You're absolutely right. So is local pride, you're obviously from the area, Alex, I'm not. Is local pride a factor in this game for people from Lancashire?
It's always an interesting debate around the local rivalries, I think. I think you'd have to say that in my years supporting Rovers, at least, I think all of the local away days have been, I wouldn't say they've been successful from year to year. I think you can recall, Bolton being a bit of a graveyard other than the season they went down into League One. I think we got a 1-0 win there, but prior to that, it was a very barren ground for us. Wigan has been a very bad ground for us historically. Blackpool likewise, other than the League One season, and Preston obviously up until last season. So I don't think we've really fared too well in local derby games in general. I'd have to say that being from the local area and knowing a lot of fans that live in the local area, and I think just any Rovers fan in general, I think it's quite clear that the Burnley game is the one that anyone worth their salt would care about. I think it's the mutual rivalry between the two clubs is far beyond anything else that is cropped up in other games. I think people from certain areas hype up the Preston game and hype up the Bolton game, but the Burnley game, I think it's the reciprocal kind of rivalry is what makes that one great. And I think you've got to understand, obviously, with Rovers and the history of being in the Premier League and probably us being one of the more successful teams in the area, there's a bit of jealousy that comes with that. There's a bit of trying to knock us off our perch a little bit, and that's understandable. And I would say we're not the most popular team in Lancashire. If you did a straw poll of all the other clubs, I don't think we'd top the popularity charts. And so it's probably a game where we've been guilty in the past of maybe not wanting it as much as the opposition, particularly maybe Bolton and Wigan and teams like that. So, yeah, there's obviously local pride in it. There's also that added element of, them sending us down into the Championship 10 years ago, with that fateful game with the chicken on the pitch and everything around that, and then Al Habsi with the chicken and that kind of thing, and then you've got the Paul Robinson winning the penalty in the last minute at their place, and I'm trying to think of other games. You've got the rivalry in League One, obviously, and the back and forth between Paul Cook and Paul Cook getting a little bit rattled by Mowbray for some reason. I still don't know why he did, but there you go. And I don't know if he's still celebrating the title or not, but we'll see how that one's going for him at Ipswich. But I think, yeah, it's a game you've got to take seriously. The fact that we're sending 3,500 fans there for an FA Cup third round game shows that, at least from the fans' point of view, it's taken seriously, because you can look at FA Cup games in the past that haven't sold particularly well, and I know obviously the team's league form plays a part in that in terms of ticket sales, but it's obviously a game that the fans are up for, so the team's got to turn up and put a performance in and try and win that local pride, obviously, like you say.
Yeah, there's absolutely an onus, I think, now on the team to go out and perform, and Mowbray to pick a good side with the 3,500 going. Because, yeah, I'm not saying that the fans are going to overreact if a weakened side is picked or anything, but you don't want fans to remember this as, the beginning of the end of, Rovers' promotion run. Do you know what I mean? I just think there's something, we've got to be careful in this one. Alex and I are going to start discussing the side now in a bit of detail. So just a question for all the Rovers viewers watching. Would you be angry at a weakened side tomorrow? If you get to the stadium tomorrow or you're about to tune in from abroad, would you be angry if you're seeing lots of different names on that team sheet? Let us know in the comments. We'll run through them very shortly. So, Alex, let's start to discuss this side. We'll start with the formation, and then we'll end up with a team that you and I have discussed off air and agreed between us. So let's start with the formation. Now 5-3-2, sorry, has been a great formation for us recently, with those defensive wing backs, the three in midfield and the two up top. So for me, I would be keeping that formation, because obviously we're not going to go through the whole season, with luck in the injury department and suspension department. So the players that are coming off the bench, some of the fringe players that might be playing in this game, we want them to be comfortable in this system and in this way of playing, if it's the way that we're going to be playing for the rest of the season. So would you be sticking with that 5-3-2 formation as well?
Absolutely. I think it's something that the manager has obviously dabbled in time and time again, to a little bit of criticism from some fans, me included at times. And you'd have to say that he's persisted with it, and it's turned out the results and performances. So I think it's something that you have to stick with. And like you say, I think if these players that are maybe on the fringes of the first team are seen to be able to slot in as and when needed, maybe due to injuries or suspensions later in the season, then we kind of need to see how they fare on in a competitive game playing this kind of style. So, yeah, I've got no problems with it. I think maybe the slight difference will be the fact that we might be expected to have more of the ball playing against a team in League One. I know they're doing very well. in League One this season, but still, obviously, as the team in the higher division, you'd be, expected to have more of the ball. So I wonder how that would be affected. But yeah, I don't really see any reason to deviate from what we've been doing recently. I just think it would be a pretty pointless exercise if we did, and yeah, it'd just be good to see if some of these players can fit into that style of play.
Yeah, and in the absence of on the other side this week, just some basic stats on Wigan this season for those that haven't seen it. Wigan are third in the table, 5 points behind Rotherham, who are in first, but they have got 3 games in hand on both Rotherham and Sunderland in second place. So Wigan absolutely in the automatic promotion push. In terms of the goals, they've got 40 goals this season, which is 4th overall in the division. So they know where the back of the net is, most certainly. And defensively, only 20 goals conceded, which is second best. So they're scoring goals and keeping it tight at the back, which is quite similar to Rovers in some recent weeks, we'll say. Just some of the other metrics that they've got, just done a quick click on things like possession. They do like the football, Alex, 56% possession overall, albeit it is a division lower. So maybe it might be a game that Rovers say to Wigan, okay, you can have the ball and we'll obviously go for our style of play on the overturn and things like that. And then obviously with a team that scores a lot of goals, surprisingly lower down in the shots per game. So it does show a bit of a clinical edge for them. And then just in terms of the danger men to look out for Wigan, the top goal scorer is Will Keane. He's got 10 goals. Callum Lang with 8 goals. And then James McLean. God, I didn't realise he was at Wigan still. So 6 goals for James McLean. So got some goals spread around the forward line and in that midfield area as well. So Alex, so we've said about the 5-3-2 and playing the right way. So youth, under 23s, we've spoken that we don't want to change things too much, but we've got a brilliant academy. We've got lots of players knocking on the door in that under 23 setup. Players that are in the first team now, it was 5 players that started the last league game from that academy. This could be a perfect opportunity to start blooding a few more youngsters. So let's just run through some of them. So Jake Garrett, first and foremost. We'll come on to the side that we've picked in a moment. But in theory, you could rest Travis Buckley and Rothwell and bring Jake Garrett in. Leighton Clarkson's obviously gone back to Liverpool now. He impressed versus Leeds in that pre-season friendly as well, didn't he? So Jake Garrett, is he someone that you'd like to see involved tomorrow?
I've maybe considered more of him as a part of this, maybe the match day squad. I think I always think when you're bringing a young player in, maybe this is me just maybe harking back to maybe when Dolan first got introduced into it. Maybe just let them be a part of the squad. They'll let them experience the match day kind of feel of it, and maybe bring them off the bench if the situation's right within the game. So it might not be something that I'd look to start the game with, but it's something that maybe you'd have as an option. If we're 3-0 up with 20 minutes to go, in a dream scenario, then I don't see any reason why you wouldn't, in that kind of comfortable environment, you wouldn't give a player like that a chance to make their debut. So, yeah, I think it's something that the manager should keep his options open about, certainly.
And just when you were saying that, the voice from above, Mr. Showbiz Silent Dan, has just reminded me 9 subs tomorrow. We can name Alex, and 5 allowed to be made. So maybe Jake Garrett will find himself on the bench as well. Seems a perfect opportunity to get some under 23s involved. Just in terms of some other names, just to run through for you, Alex, just let me know if there's any of these that you're thinking. Sam Barnes, Jake Batty, Sam Durrant, and Luke Brennan as well, particularly Brennan and Durrant. They are wingers who have impressed for the under 23s recently. So can you make a case for any of those?
I think it's difficult that once you make the case for one of them being included, you could obviously make the case for everyone being included. So you've got to respect the cup in the sense that you don't want to make wholesale changes. And I think it's obviously up to the manager looking at his squad and who he's got available due to COVID and injuries, etc., where he thinks those maybe 2 or 3 extra slots on that bench would be best served to be. Obviously, I think including them all would be a stretch too far. So, maybe include a couple of the key players. I know a couple have gone out on loan and they're in and out of the club a little bit at the moment, with it being January, obviously. So yeah, maybe just include 2 or 3, but not just a long list. Really, is what I'd
Yeah.
go with.
I think Jake Batty is probably one that would be looking to include. Harry Pickering's injury. Eden,
Yeah.
we're probably expecting to start. It would be good to have a reserve left back on the bench. So Jake Batty is probably one that I'd be including in those 9 subs. Just going a bit deeper into things. Ash Phillips is obviously getting absolute plaudits with what he's doing. Very young player. And Harry Leonard as well, on fire for the under-18s, did really well for the under-23s. Are these 2 players that you might not bring them on, but if they make the squad in that list of 9, those 2 maybe?
Well, Ash Phillips is obviously the talk of the academy at the moment. Obviously was called up for England in his age group. I think it was under-17s, wasn't it? Or under-18s. I can't remember which age group it was, but that was in the last few months. So he's obviously someone that's very highly regarded in the academy. He's a player that I've seen for the under-23s. I watched them against Everton earlier on in the season in a 2-2 draw. Ewood, actually. It was free entry that night, and I thought I'd pop down and see, what they were up to, and I thought he stood out on the night, to be honest. And I believe he's had training sessions with the first team so already at that young age. So it's obvious that the club see something in him, and his development is very promising going forward. I know that Mowbray has actually name-checked him in a press conference or 2 as well, so certainly someone that the manager's looking at. So yeah, I'd be in favour of maybe someone like that being involved, and obviously Leonard as well, coming from the 18s into the 23s and recently signing his new contract as well. So we're very fortunate at the club that we support, that we have that element of the academy and the first team being very integrated. I think there's a clear pathway between the academy age groups and into the first team. I know that the run that we're on with regards to naming an academy player in our match day 11 and squad is very long. It's almost a historic run. I'm not quite sure how many games it is, but it must be over 10 years almost, you would
I
have
think
thought.
it is quite a long time. I have seen that stat somewhere. Someone in the comments must know. Even if it's Dan himself, post in the comments. It is a very long run.
I'd love to know that stat, and I'd love to know how that stacks up against most other clubs in our league and really in the Football League, to be honest, because I'd like to think that we'd be near the top of the list. So yeah, it's certainly a club that we pride ourselves on promoting the youth and at the right time. And I think you see the players in the team now that have come through the academy, Scott Wharton, obviously, and obviously Nyambe Lenihan and Buckley as well. Dolan, you probably couldn't class as coming through the academy. But yeah, I'd be looking to include the likes of Ash Phillips, certainly. Yeah, he's a player that I'm obviously excited about, and obviously that the club is as well.
Just before we get into actually picking the side and talking about some of the players, just to pick up a couple of the comments. Mr. Concept, get that Irish right back we just signed in the team, James Brown. Yeah, I think if this was another week, Mr. Concept, I think we might have actually seen him, but I think Mowbray is going to want to see him in training for a little bit longer before doing that. So it's a shame that the game's come when it has, actually, because I do think a few weeks down the line, we might have actually seen James Brown, but yeah, great to have some backup to Ryan Nyambe. And if you've not seen the video that Andy Watson's done with the Irish reporter, I can't remember the guy's name, really sorry. He's done a really good lowdown on James Brown for people that haven't seen that. So go and check that out on the Rovers Chat Twitter. And then Alexander Haben, just a short while ago, mentioned Dan Pike. Dan Pike is away, we believe, Alexander. So this would have been a perfect game for Dan Pike. So just a shame that it's fallen that way as well. And then Barracuda reminding us of that absolute rocket from Stephen Reid. Would be awesome if someone scored a goal like that. It's still, I think, the hardest shot I've ever seen hit in a game of football. Just an absolute nonsense goal in many respects. But there we go. So, Alex, let's get into some personnel then. We've discussed the formation and the merits of, of bringing in some of the under-23s. I think the consensus is, yes, we'll make some changes, but we don't want to make too many changes. So there needs to be some logic to the side. So let's start in goal. I think in a footballing sense, Ainsley Pears was probably a little bit unlucky to lose his position back to Thomas Kaminski after filling in so well. But obviously Kaminski is the number one. So he automatically came back in. So I'd be bringing Ainsley Pears in for this game. We see it in the Premier League in particular with reserve keepers being available for the cup run. So would you be rewarding Pears with the start tomorrow?
Yeah, I don't see any reason. We had Gordon Pears Banks at Bournemouth, and I don't see any reason why he can't get involved in the FA Cup. I think certainly with Pears, he came in from Middlesbrough, obviously, for that kind of nominal fee, and you'd like to think that he's probably in that transition in his career where you think if he doesn't kind of get into that first team slot in the next year or two, he might look to move on to try and get that number one spot somewhere else. So you'd certainly want to keep him hungry. I think Kaminski's fitness has always been a real worry for Rovers, hasn't it? I think everyone got a bit twitchy when he went off at Stoke, and everyone was blind worried about it. But Pears came in and did a really good job for a few games. So yeah, you'd want to kind of keep his toe dipped in the water, as it were, and kind of keep him involved in it. So you never know when you might need a goalkeeper, injury, suspension, anything. So yeah, certainly one I'd be including.
Mick in the comments, brilliant kind of linchpin to everything else we're going to say in terms of the team. Mick, great time to give some of the fringe players a run out and give the regular starters a rest. It's all about the league this year. So with that sentiment, as we move through the side, Alex, a man that we've not seen for a while. We played in some of the earlier games, particularly when we had some defensive injuries. Hayden Carter, he did impress me earlier on in the season. I really want to see Hayden Carter in this game. There might be a little bit of talk about him going out on loan. Obviously, he's found it really difficult. He is fifth choice centre-back at the moment behind, the three that have been starting recently and Daniel Ayala. So I want to see Hayden Carter. I think this is a good game to maybe dust off his fitness. And if he is going to go out on loan, a chance for him to just show the clubs show Rovers that he's still got a contribution to make and maybe show a club that he might be going out on loan to. So Hayden Carter for you, does he come in?
Yeah, definitely. I think he's been one of the most unlucky players really this season. You'd have to say, I think when he was called upon to slot in at right back early in the season, I thought he did a very good job. I thought he certainly didn't look out of place at the level. Obviously went out on loan last season at Burton and by all accounts did really well and won high praise from their fan base about how he made an impact on their team and helped them avoid relegation. And you'd have to say that when the centre-backs in this team have been functioning so well that even Daniel Ayala can't get in the team, possibly the best centre-back in this league, in the Championship in the last decade, you'd have to say he'd be up there, wouldn't he, in a list? That someone like Hayden Carter, what chance has he got? And I feel really sorry for him. I think he's been very unlucky with that kind of thing. But I think I've always been wondering whether he'd be let out on loan this January. I think there's kind of uncertainty around that at the moment. But if he's still at the club and he hasn't left yet, and if he's got to leave in the next 12 hours for it to be have an impact on tomorrow's game. So I'd definitely play Hayden. I know he's been a little bit disappointed about his game time, and you can understand that. You just get into that point in your career, aren't you, where you want to be getting in that first team and impacting on it. So yeah, certainly I'd play Hayden.
Now, the next one, or the next name and position is probably the one that we stewed over the most. So the right wing back position. So all of the talks at the moment are in the right wing back position. So for those of you that have not been following the news, looking very likely that Ryan Nyambe won't sign a contract at Rovers. And indeed, it might seem like he's on his way out this January. So that's going to be a real shame. So we mentioned James Brown earlier. He's obviously someone that's going to come in and challenge that right back position. Big rumours today about, I need to find the guy's full name, Zifuik. I can't even say it. Deo Vicio Zifuik. Someone please pronounce that name a bit more for me. A signing from the Bundesliga, which would be, in theory, a really good signing for Rovers. So right wing back and right back is all the talk of the town at the moment. It is for this game as well. Joe Rankin Costello, Alex, he's been out for a long time, been out, injured and really struggled with injuries, has signed that new contract. He is a player that's committed to us long term. Is this a perfect game to bring him back in, with the pressure off the promotion run? Do you start him after being out so long, or are you thinking about someone else in that position?
I think from the outset of this game, it's a game that I see being quite physical and a bit feisty, not being kind of just a knockabout. And the problem with JRC is you don't trust him to be fit for longer than 10 minutes. And it's such a shame because I remember 5 or 6 years ago when speaking to people who watch the academy teams quite regularly, and I always ask them, out of the players in the academy, who stands out to you? Who do you think is going to be the next big thing out of the academy? And to a person, everyone always mentioned JRC. He had a shocking, I think it was a knee injury when he was still in the under-23s team. I think he did an ACL then, or an injury similar to that. I think he was out for nearly a year. And then he's had just a succession of muscle injuries and hamstring injuries, and you just got to feel for him. I think probably bringing him back for that Fulham game didn't do him any good. I think we kind of threw him in because the team were in a bit of a crisis, and I think the manager probably regrets it now, just throwing him in there, because I don't think he was fit when he got thrown back in. But if he is genuinely fit and available to play, then this is the sort of game that you need to maybe just try and give him 60 minutes or 45 minutes. We do have the 5 substitutions, so I know there's been a bit of controversy around not picking James Brown because he's effectively in his pre-season with the League of Ireland finishing in November. I don't really see any harm in playing him for 45 minutes and trying to jiggle it around a little bit with JRC as well. So, I'm a bit disappointed in that, but he's got to be fit and he's got to be introduced properly. I'd be most upset if he was introduced and then injured again. We've got to get him on a fitness program that means that he's available to play, because at the moment we're just kind of lumbering from one injury to the next. And I think even the manager in his pre-match press conferences, it's almost like he sighs every time the name comes up. It's just one injury after another. So, what's best for him at the end of the day? And ultimately, I'm not in a position to, make that, comment live on here about, where his injury's at and what he's able to do. But if he's fit and available to play and the medical team think it's right, then he should be played, yeah.
Yeah, and we covered it a lot last season, didn't we? Rankin Costello offers something completely different to Niambi. Niambi's all about the power and drive down that right-hand side. Rankin Costello's got something a bit cuter down that side, crosses into the box, the passing inside and things like that. So it'd be an interesting choice if we did go that way. Moving a little bit on in terms of the players then, Alexander Haben a little while ago said a game for Davenport. Alexander, for me, yes. When you're talking about unlucky players, you mentioned Hayden Carter earlier, Alex, because of the form of the defence. Davenport is another one who's losing out because of the form of the midfield. Travis Rothwell and Buckley have just been absolutely sensational this season. In particular, John Buckley, obviously, Player of the Month nominee as well. Congrats to Bucko on that one. But, Davenport has had to sit and watch those three really dictate. I would be giving Davenport the chance in this game for the reasons we said earlier, particularly with the rate that Bucko's getting yellow cards and with the look that we might not have with injuries in the future. We do need Davenport to stay fresh and be comfortable with the system and things like that for if we do need to rely on him. So a good old feisty Lancashire derby, someone to kind of do what Travis does. For me, Jacob Davenport gets the start. What about you?
Yeah, I forgot to say before we started this that, these are all COVID permitting and, things can change at short notice, can't they, in the current climate. I think Davenport, again, very unlucky with injuries in his first couple of seasons at the club. Never really got a look in because of that. and then as kind of in this current way of playing, he's probably third choice out of Travis Johnson and himself, obviously, for that more defensive mindset of a midfielder in the way that we're playing. So if he's fit and available, yeah, 100%, he's someone that I'd be looking to play. I think he's always been a player that has been quite intriguing, because I think when he had that run on loan at Burton from Manchester City before we signed him, he was, deemed to be quite, a player that could score a goal from a free kick, and he had a lot more to his game than just that kind of holding role that he's been more known as for us. But whenever he's actually been called into the squad, he's done the job. I can't actually recall a game where he's slotted in and thought, oh, that was a real drop off, in quality. So once again, it's just another demonstration that you've got these players just vying for spots in the team, and you'd have to say that's probably one of the reasons why, when you look at the squad as a whole and you've got it on paper, that's probably why we are where we are in the league, because these players that are on the pitch probably think, well, if we dip for any period of time in performance levels, there's somebody else who can just come in and take over. So, yeah, Davenport's another one.
And what you just said there, that's why I don't think we're going to drop off, Alex, because the levels on the pitch have been set by that starting 11 that's been picking itself. And as you say, the bench that we've been able to name at times, they are pushing that starting 11 and saying, you got to be on your toes because I'm going to be ripping that shirt off you. So absolutely that. And before we, confirm the side, two other players that have had to contend with, the form of the front two. Obviously, it's been all about the man Brereton Diaz this season, but Reda Khadra has done well in recent weeks as well. So Tyrese Dolan, who started the season really well, and Sam Gallagher have had to sit and be patient. When you're talking about fringe inverted players coming in, these ain't fringe players coming in. If it is Gallagher and Dolan on Saturday, what a couple of players to bring in and rest the man Diaz, rest Khadra, keep them fresh. I'm starting Gallagher and Dolan because I think, again, they've just been so unlucky with the form of Diaz and Khadra, haven't they?
Yeah, they have, and I think you, particularly Dolan, you add to that the COVID issues and the self-isolation issues and the doubts about vaccinations and things like that. I'm not going to make any comments or anything along those lines tonight because I don't think it's my place to, but it's unfortunate for the lad. I think he'll probably, I can't obviously speak for him, but I think he probably regrets it in terms of, he's in the squad, he's being involved in it, and then suddenly he misses out. And I think once you're out the squad, he's found it quite hard to push his way back in. And so he probably looks back on that with just some regret about how it happened. But, it is what it is, and we move on. And Gallagher's the same. I mean, Gallagher's another one where, particularly this season, you've seen him step up in terms of his goals per game ratio. Certainly, he's got, I think it's 5 or 6 goals, isn't it, so far this season, which is, he's looked more of a goal threat than he has previously. But, once again, when the team's functioning so well, he's not been on the pitch long enough to really say that he should have scored X number of goals. So, it's a great opportunity for him just after signing his new contract to state to the fans, this is why I've been signed up, this is why I'm staying, and this is what I'm capable of doing. I think when you've got Brereton, who's obviously just stolen all the headlines, 20 goals in 24 games, and it's just the talk of the town, isn't it? It probably feels a little bit disappointing for Gallagher in the sense that he probably thinks that he's as good as Brereton. That might sound silly to say, sitting here now, but in another 12 months it might not sound silly. And it's just a great opportunity. It's a recurring theme, but it's a great opportunity for all of these players to prove to the manager that if we pick up an injury in the second half of this season, that they're more than capable of slotting in and not weakening the team. And I just think Gallagher has got the right mentality. He doesn't strike me as someone who kicks up a fuss about not being in the team. He's obviously determined to be in the team but he doesn't strike me as someone who causes problems in dressing rooms or, you know, is a real problem for the manager or anything like that. He just kind of gets on with the job and tries his best, and I've never kind of faulted that with Gallagher. So yeah, I wish them all the best, and you know, hope that they all get game time tomorrow and show what they're capable of doing at the end of the day.
And before we just bring up the side, Alex, that you and I have agreed, just a couple of the comments here. So Bradley, you know, you've made a really, really important and valid point here. You know, Dan Butterworth, you know, I'd like to see Dan Butterworth over Gallagher, see how he performs from the start. Millwall was a game where Butterworth changed the game and never got the chance to push on. So we need to give Dan Butterworth a little mention here, Bradley. We haven't forgotten about him. And I did think in my head, would Mowbray be tempted to do a 4-3-3 so that he could play Butterworth, Gallagher and Dolan together? But I just think that Mowbray is going to want to stick to that 5 at the back formation and just keep the momentum like that going. But absolutely, I can make a valid case for Dan Butterworth, whether it's Butterworth and Dolan, Gallagher and Butterworth, you know, Gallagher and Dolan, like we've said. Absolutely, Dan Butterworth needs to feature in this game. Desperately unlucky with that shot that hit the crossbar against Birmingham. I was absolutely willing that one to go in. What a moment that would have been. But yeah, I want to see some good minutes from Butterworth. And then Mick, would you give Tyler McGlaw a run out? The answer for me, Mick, is no. And the reason I say that is the last time he played was that Blackpool away game where there were a lot of fans there and he did struggle. He did find it hard that day. And I'd hate for him to be scapegoated. You know, if we were to lose the game tomorrow, 3,500 fans there. Let's say Wigan win the game 1-0. James McLean's got down the left-hand side. I don't want that to happen to Tyler McGlaw. I think the best thing for him at this stage is perhaps another loan, maybe. See what happens in January. I don't want him to be fed to the lions, so to speak. So if it's not Joe Rankin Costello, maybe it will be Ryan Nyambi. So we'll see. So for me, not McGlaw, which is a shame because he is another academy prospect, of course. So Alex, then the final order of the day then is to just agree the side. Well, we've already agreed it. We will flash it up on screen now. This is what you and I have gone for. Let us know what you think in the comments, Rovers fans, whether Alex and I are barking mad. We've spoken about most of these. Just to talk through some of the others, though, in our thought process. I think that Mowbray is going to want to protect Lenihan and Scott Wharton, who have had some injuries. And Van Hecker's obviously only, inverted commas, a player on loan and not a player who could be with us longer term. So I think he'll go for Van Hecker over Lenihan and Wharton for those reasons and obviously bring back Daniel Ayala. So that was our thought process there. Harry Pickering's obviously injured, so Tayo Edun is someone we're going to have to absolutely wrap up in cotton wool at this moment in time, unless we do bring in a left back, which is unlikely. So Edun needs to be there for the next 4 to 6 weeks, but that side doesn't function without a left back or a left wing back. So Tayo Edun, of course, is there. Joe Rothwell was one that we really stewed about. Oh, we've lost the graphic there. I think it's it might be my phone that's gone off, so bear with me. Joe Rothwell is one that we stewed over. You could have had John Buckley in that position, of course. But we went for Joe Rothwell. He's worked really hard, you know, in that kind of deeper lying midfield position this season. It would be good to see him kind of unleashed a bit further forward, but it could be Buckley. You know, Buckley's got a good engine. And to be fair to Joe Rothwell, you know, he has been probably nursing a couple of knocks in games so far this season. So that's why we did that. And obviously we went with Dolan and Gallagher up front as we retrieve our graphics with the magic of StreamYard. So let's just dip into the comments. Kevin, late but here, lol. What have you missed? You've missed a lot of chat, Kevin, about the type of side that we would be playing tomorrow. We've weighed up the under-23s. We've weighed up, you know, not going too far over in terms of the side and making sure it's competitive. So that's what we've been talking about. And then Bradley Johnson is the other one that we obviously spoke about. He's been a bit unlucky as well this season. So that's the side we've gone for. Mr. Concept, Butterworth for Rothwell. Yeah, you can see that as well. Maybe Butterworth in that position would not fault that. So he could obviously try and create something out of nothing as well. So would not be against that, Mr. Concept, either. And then Bradley, would you maybe have Dak on the bench as a sort of scare tactic? Seeing his name could bring a little confidence and worry at the same time. Now, there's obviously some needle there, isn't there, between Bradley Dack and Wigan Athletic. I am sure that Bradley Dack is in the ear of Tony Mowbray for that very reason. Bradley, I think Dak would love to be in and around that squad tomorrow and just being there. Whether he comes on is obviously, that's not going to happen. But yeah, maybe. But I don't think we'll see it, Bradley. I think he's got a bit more on his road to recovery to go. So that's the side we've gone for. Let us know what you think in the comments, whether Alex and I have got that barking mad wrong or whether you'd like to see other players. Dan Butterworth is one that's featuring very, very strongly. And if Joe Rankin-Costello and his injury is a bit too much, then maybe it is Ryan Niambi that's going to be there. So, Alex, the final order of the day then is the match prediction, how you think the game is going to go. Let us know what you think in the comments, Rovers fans. Let us know your score predictions. We will run through those before the end of the show. I think we did have some a bit further up as well, which we'll go through towards the end as well. Let us know how you think the game is going to go. Score and scorers. Alex, going to go to you first.
It's always really difficult to predict these because you don't know what kind of team the opposition are going to pick either. Obviously, they've got a promotion fight of their own to worry about, haven't they? So they could maybe rest a few of theirs. So, yeah, I think we're due a win in the FA Cup. I think we've not been great the last few years. And we're due a win at Wigan as well. We're due a win at Wigan. I'll go with a 1-0 win. I'm going to go 1-0.
1-0 from Alex, which that's good for you. That is very good
yeah.
for you. Particularly a Lancashire derby as well. That is very good for you. So I'm impressed. I think Rovers are going to get the job done as well. I think there is a duty to get it done in front of those 3,500 fans. I think the side might actually be a little bit stronger than what you and I have said there. We've just done that to give a good shout out to those fringe players that haven't featured this season. So I do think it'll be a stronger side than that. So for that reason, I think we'll get the job done. I think it'll be 2-0. I think Rovers will get it done. And I think Sam Gallagher will get a goal. And I think that, let's say Dan Butterworth. I think Dan Butterworth will chip in. His name is featured all night. We'll go for that one. So let's run through these comments. So Dan, I think we're going to have to scroll right up to the top. We certainly had Lee Massey at 10-10. Said 2-1 Blackburn tomorrow. And we had someone else above that as well, I believe. Cy Slater, that was it. I've said it. That was at 9:35. I've said it. Galley Brace, 2-0 Rovers. So nice and positive from Cy and Lee there. Other predictions that we have had. As I scroll back down, Kevin has gone 2-0 Rovers. Mick, I'm going 3-1 Rovers. Lee Massey going a bit further. Correct lineup, but Butterworth is a shout. 2-1 win Rovers. Mr. Concept 3-1. Bradley, I think a tight 1-0 to Rovers. Both teams cancelling each other out. Abby, absolutely love that. 6-1. Galley, hat-trick, Butterworth and Dolan. Who the hell are we, Alex? That is the prediction of the night from Abby. Love that, Abby. Kevin's asking, where has the old Alex gone? Ollie Walker-Peel, nice to see you, mate. 2-1 Rovers. And yeah, Brighton have given permission for Kadra and Van Hecker as well. Any other predictions? Yes, Alexander Haben. I'll go 2-1 Rovers win. I agree with Gallagher and Butterworth goal scorers. Oh, and Swangan 77, 2-0 Rovers. They're sneaking in just as I'm going into the wrapping up piece. So I think that was a clean sweep of Rovers wins. Not even a draw in there. So we are a positive bunch, aren't we? So there we go. So Alex, I just want to thank you for joining us on this very fine Friday evening. How the hell have we talked about an FA Cup tie for 50 odd minutes? We've done that some service, haven't we? So there we go.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I've enjoyed that chat.
Yeah, I mean, it was just mentioned that I've changed. Well, it's a change Rovers as well, isn't it? So you've got to change along with it. So I think that's probably why we've managed it. But yeah, I think it's almost a little bit of a relief to get out of the league campaign. I think it's been really busy, and it's got to that stage where it's been a bit nervy before each league game, because I think it's had that significance to it with like the games in hand and us being where we are in the league. I think it's almost quite a good rest to kind of take your mind off it a little bit for a week. So yeah, it's a game I'm looking forward to, and I just hope that the fans that are going to the game can go home happy. And I think the ideal scenario is that we win tomorrow and then draw a Big Six club. You know, one of the, I'll call them the Sky Sports Six. Draw one of them in the next round. So yeah, look, yeah. I wish everyone going to the game all the best, and hope you have a good day.
There we go. And Alexander, change is as good as a rest. Absolutely, Alexander. I like this version of Alex Lomax. So long may this continue. And Rovers fans, yeah, as Alex says, if you are at the game, go and enjoy it. I'm absolutely certain that the Rovers squad and manager knows the duty that they have to entertain that 3,500 crowd, which, if the rumours are true based on ticket sales, might be the majority of the fans in that stadium tomorrow. So let's make some good noise. And Rovers fans, please give this video a very big like for us. Please hit that subscribe button on our channel. And as we said right at the very start, if there is someone who you want to nominate for this half-season ticket nomination, if it's yourself, please reach out to us on that Rovers Chat Twitter account, and we will get that all announced next week or so. We're absolutely delighted to be offering this out. It's brilliant. And I will also shout out to Gary, California Rover. You might see him on Twitter as well. He's going to be helping out with some of that as well. And he's got Renzo over from Chile. So really, really good stuff going on in the Rovers fan base at the moment. So absolutely bang on. So yeah, that's it, Alex. We will finish there. Enjoy the game, Rovers fans, and we will see you soon. Take care. The Rovers Chat YouTube channel is proudly sponsored by 6yardsout.com. They've got retro football from every era with mugs, phone cases and much more. They also have plenty of Rovers goods, including apparel with the famous 94-95 season and this season's kit. Check them out using the link in the description below.